Hello and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I am your host, Brian Funk. I make music as AfroDJMac. I'm an Ableton certified trainer, musician, producer. I teach for Berklee Online. And today we're going to talk a little bit about inspiration. Now, I don't really have sponsors for this podcast, so allow me a moment to just ask you to stop by my website, AfroDJMac.com. I do a lot of writing about music production. I produce free Ableton Live packs, a lot of Ableton Live tutorials, and I've got some pretty cool products at my store. I try to make, the stuff that I would want to have, and that could be sample packs, lots of Ableton Live packs. I have video courses, and my pride and joy is the AfroDJMac Music Production Club, which is a monthly subscription that allows you to get some sort of free download from me every month. Now, as you join, you get my live performance with Ableton Live course. You get a live performance template for Ableton Live. I've got an easy download for the first 150 free Ableton Live packs I've made. The Fat Moog Bass Volume 1 Ableton Live pack. You get 30% off of all purchases at my store. And there's also a lot of really cool special offers from different companies and producers around the internet, such as Patches, Subaqueous, Isotonic Studios, Elephant, Expanding Sound, Mode Audio, Music Gurus, Beat Drop, Ableton for Drummers, and there's more stuff coming in all the time. For the month of April, I have the second part to my Creating Excitement video course that comes with your subscription, and that video course is something I'm pretty excited about. I'm basically trying to document all of the things that I like to do to make my tracks more interesting. And I'm putting each technique into a short couple-minute video. I think it's cool. It's something that I'm kind of doing as a reminder to myself so that when I'm in these positions, when I need to make a track more exciting, I got a set of videos and ideas I can just turn to. It's something I kind of wish I would have started a long time ago, maybe even in a notebook form, but that's what the video course is all about. It's 2 volumes of 30 videos so far. A total of 30 videos so far. There's going to be more added to it. I've got a whole list of ideas that I want to do. But anyway, that's the Music Production Club. It's just $6 a month to join. You can join for a little bit cheaper if you go for 3 or 6 months. You can cancel at any time, and you get to keep everything that you've downloaded. And that's something with everything at my store. It's a satisfaction guarantee, no questions asked, return policy. You don't like something, just tell me, and I'll give you your money back. And since it's a digital download, you get to keep it. Now, on to the show. Today, I'm talking a bit about inspiration. And inspiration is, obviously a wonderful thing. It's part of what makes us want to make music. It's that feeling that, you get excited to go create something. And there's all of this kind of hype and glorification of inspiration going on. The inspired artist that just, is born to make whatever piece of art it is they do. It's almost like this uncontrollable force they are endowed with. And I'm kind of here to say that that's all a bunch of nonsense. I think probably, I think what's really behind it is hard work and discipline. But I do know that, and I get caught in this too, it seems like inspiration is sort of like this magical, touch of the magic wand or something that we're supposed to get that makes us go and make great works of art. But I have a feeling that has been overly romanticized and turned into something it's really not. Now, obviously, the feeling of being inspired is real, and I'm sure we can all relate to that. But I don't think it's something you need to wait for. And that's where I want to start is don't wait for inspiration. I'm calling this podcast Hunt. Don't wait to be struck by lightning. And that's how I think we should think about inspiration. It's not something that strikes you like a lightning bolt out of the sky, although it can be occasionally. That's kind of rare, though, I think. For all the times that's happened to me where I'm struck by this inspiration lightning bolt and I run out and make music, I could probably count that on my fingers on one hand, where most of the time what I have to do is hunt for it. And there's lots of ways you can hunt for this. You can listen to music, obviously. You can find other works of art. You can have good conversations. There's no telling how it's going to happen. But I think if we want to start elevating our work and become more of a professional and actually make something and build something, we need to work whether or not inspiration has arrived. So if you've ever read The War of Art, which I always talk about, and I don't feel bad about bringing it up because it's such a good book by Stephen Pressfield. It's The War of Art. He talks about this idea where professionals show up to work no matter what, and they get to work. Whereas it's more of an amateur mindset to think you're going to wait for inspiration to strike you and then get to work. And I can tell you a really good reason why you can't do that. If you wait for inspiration, one day you will be inspired, sure, but you're not going to have the skills or the technique or the know-how to actually act on that inspiration. Whereas if you're being the professional and you're showing up day after day, putting in the time, putting in the work, then you're building a set of abilities, a set of skills, a set of techniques, a set of methods for working that you can then employ when the inspiration strikes. And when you have that behind you, you can actually do something with the inspiration. And I think back to some of my earlier days of making music, and I say earlier days like it doesn't happen anymore. Of course it still happens. But in my earlier days especially, I found myself being inspired, and then I'd go open my DAW, and right now I'm kind of looking at Pro Tools and Logic in the earlier days, and I would open these softwares and have my ideas and then get kind of stuck because I didn't know how to execute on them. I didn't know what I needed to do within the software. I didn't know how to set up the audio, say, or whatever it might have been. I didn't know how to get past the hurdle of the software. Now, I'm not saying that didn't happen to me when I began using Ableton Live, but by then I think I'd developed a foundational skill set that I was able to translate into learning live. But when I was learning, I think especially Logic, I ran into this problem a lot because I kind of switched again from a different DAW, which was Pro Tools. And I just found myself often stuck when I needed to move forward and I had this inspiration. And I like to think of inspiration, when I do get struck by lightning, it's a bit like trying to hold water inside your hands. You cup your hands and imagine you're scooping water out of a river. You can't keep it in your hands for very long. You have to drink it instantly or else it falls through your fingers. And that's how I see inspiration when it does strike. You have to be able to act on it. And if you're the type of artist that's just waiting for those moments when you're inspired, you're going to let all that water slip through your fingers while you're trying to figure out how to do some simple things like set up your microphone or load a VST and actually input MIDI notes or record that guitar part. While you're trying to figure all that out, you're going to see all that inspiration slip through your fingers, and it's going to turn into frustration. So it's really important to show up and just learn the skill sets and understand that as you're doing so, you're building this set of skills that you're going to be able to tap into. And I find that itself kind of inspiring, where if I know that, maybe I'm not inspired to be doing my work, whatever work that is really, but in this case, music production. If I'm not inspired, I can at least sort of find some purpose in it by knowing that what I'm doing is building the foundation for the times when I will be inspired so that I can act on it. So even if I'm not really feeling like doing the work on a particular day, I know that I'm at least getting myself ready for the times when I am psyched to make music and there's nothing else I can think about. And I run to the studio and I can actually get those ideas down. The other kind of fun thing about being in that professional mindset of getting to work, no matter what, is that usually after a few minutes, you find your inspiration. Maybe it's a sound. Maybe it's fooling around with a new instrument. Maybe it's a chord progression. Could be a melody. Could be the piece of music you just listened to. It doesn't really matter. But I find, and this is probably because I love making music, is that within a few minutes, something inspires me. And it's kind of like you have to, again, hunt for it. You got to go find it. You can't just wait for lightning to strike and then get to work. Sometimes you got to get to work and then you find the gold. You find the thing that makes you want to actually do your work. And I mean, I know I talk about this a lot too, but January is that daily challenge to make a piece of music every single day. And how many times out of the 31 days did I not want to actually do it? Probably a good half of those days. But I managed to make some music every single day, and it was because I found that inspiration after some time had passed. So you might want to think about just kind of forcing yourself to do it a little bit, and you might discover that within a short amount of time, if this is really something that you do enjoy doing and you find fascinating and interesting, that you will find inspiration, and that will then start pulling you through. And the fact that you've been showing up every day will give you the ability to actually get those ideas down and manifest them into a reality. You know, if we look at the origin, the etymology of the word inspire, it's actually kind of interesting. So it says it comes from I'm looking at Google, and it says it comes from the Middle English inspire with an en, and forgive my pronunciations if I mess this up as we get into the Latin here. Old French inspirer, and the Latin inspirare, maybe, which means to breathe or blow into. So you get like the in, which is into, and the spire, which means breathe, right? So in breath, you're breathing into. And it says that this was originally formed from like a divine being or supernatural being actually breathing an idea into a person, imparting a truth to a person. So it's some other force that comes along and breathes this thought, this truth, this message into a person. Now, with that definition, we are basically saying that some greater being will blow truth into you, blow some idea into you. Now, the thing that I like about this is it does sort of sound kind of magical and fun, and it gives the whole creative process this kind of, mystical allure, which I do believe there's some truth to. Sometimes you feel like creativity and making music is kind of something beyond, like you're tapping into something really special. And I'm not trying to take away from that, because I think that's part of the magic of it, the mystery. Where does this all come from? I find that really fascinating, and it's self-inspiring, almost as if like creativity is this living thing. It's this other force of the world, almost like gravity is, that maybe we can't see. But the word means something else is going to breathe this feeling into you. And my problem with that is that takes you a bit out of the equation. That means you have no control over it. You have to wait for something to do it to you. And I'm not a fan of that, because I like to have that control, right? I want to be the one that can turn it on and off, which is kind of why I'm going for this. Be the hunter. Go find it. Because again, these moments of this divine inspiration are pretty rare in my life. It happens from time to time, but it's certainly not every day. If it's a weekly basis, I'm lucky, but I don't even know if it's that often. It's the type of thing where it reminds me of when people don't take responsibility for their actions. They make excuses. It's really easy to make excuses for things, whether it's, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's, not exercising or something. I was tired. I didn't feel good. I had a late night. I had to get up early. I mean, it doesn't matter what your excuse is, but now what that does is sort of take the blame off of you, which is nice. And people like to do that. I like to do that. We like to feel like it wasn't our fault. There was something else that prevented us from doing that. But the problem with that is now you are powerless. As soon as you accept the responsibility, you are empowered to do something about it. If you pass the blame off to something else, then there was nothing you could do. It wasn't your fault. But as soon as you accept it, now you can do something about it. And it's true, there might be things that are a bit out of your control. But by saying it's still my choice, it's still my decision, it's still within my power, and it's still my responsibility, you are taking power. And that might be enough to get you to figure out a way to work around those problems. The world is full of stories of people who have overcome incredible adversity in order to accomplish amazing things. And the world is full of amazing people who have accomplished amazing things. And those people, despite what's going on in their life, have the same 24 hours a day that we all have. We all get the same amount. And it's likely we all get the same amount of other crap that gets in our way. There's that old saying where, you might think your life is tough, but you probably wouldn't trade your problems with anyone else. And I think that's very true. We all have stuff going on, but the difference is, are we taking responsibility? So inspiration in this kind of this origin of some divine being breathing truth and blowing ideas into you is really a dangerous thing, because now you are not responsible for that and you have to wait. And that's when I think people say things like, I'm not creative, I'm not inspired. And those are excuses. Now that's no longer your fault. And now you cannot do anything about it. And I don't think you want to be there if you want to be a productive musician. You're going to have to work anyway. Inspiration to me is a little bit more like making a fire instead of getting struck by lightning or having something breathed into you. To build a fire, you need to set the materials right. You need to gather materials, set them up, and you need to light it. You need to start the fire. You need to make the spark. You have to set the conditions right. And I think making music is like that. You have to set the conditions. You've got to make it so that you can actually do the work. That might mean just setting up your equipment, finding a good space where you won't be distracted, where you can actually spend some time without interruption, setting the scenario so that it can be a productive place to be, conducive to making music. And then once you do that, just like making a fire, you have to nurture it. You have to build it. You have to, once you get that fire going, once you get the spark going, you got to keep an eye on it. You might have to readjust the kindling. You might have to blow into it a little bit. You might have to poke it. You might have to go find some more logs and add it to the fire. Such is inspiration in making music. If we think of it that way, again, it's within our power to do something about it. And we can actually make it happen on our own. We don't have to rely on some outside force that may or may not ever come. We can summon it ourselves. Let's say we're not feeling inspired, because we probably aren't. Maybe this podcast hasn't done it for you yet. Hopefully you'll leave here feeling a little inspired, but let's pretend we're not. And I think that's easy to do because we're not. I mean, I guess if you were really inspired, you wouldn't be listening to me talk about being inspired. You'd be going out and making something. And I hope after saying that the listenership drops off drastically on this episode. But what can we do? What are some things we can do? I think the best thing to do is to just disrupt the routine a little bit. I find that changing my thinking a little bit helps. So how can I do that? It might be to just stop my normal routine and insert something that's a little different. It might just be going for a walk. I love taking my dogs for a walk, and I find that that's the type of activity that I can do some thinking during. I like to move. I find that very helpful. And if you listen back to my conversation with Da Vinci, which I'll put in the show notes, Da Vinci talks a lot about that, and he connected his study of martial arts with this idea of moving the body to move the mind. And I think that's really important. So one of the things I like to do is to take a walk with my dogs and get some fresh air. Even if it's cold and rainy, even just a few minutes is sometimes all it takes, because it's enough to just stop whatever you're doing and change things up a little bit. Getting the blood flowing a little bit, so important. I think exercise is great for this. It's so important for me in my life to get my exercise because it's one of those activities that allows you to kind of reset everything. It's very easy to get caught up in our daily problems and issues and responsibilities and just focus on them kind of nonstop. But when we do some sort of exercise, now our concentration has to go into that exertion and that stress. And it takes us out of this mental framework and puts us into a physical framework. And we can concentrate more on what we're doing with our body. And let's not forget that our mind, although we separate it a lot, our mind is part of our body. It's our brain. It's an organ just like everything else. So by doing some exercise, you can really change things up, break your concentration on whatever's on your mind, and see things from a different perspective. It's really powerful. Try doing something like that. Get moving. Disrupt the ordinary. Have a stimulating conversation. Call someone up that you admire, that you like talking to. Speak with them a little bit. And this is one of my favorite things about the podcast is that I've gotten to talk to so many great people and learn so many nice things in these long-form, uninterrupted conversations. Set those up. Instead of the text message, hey, how you doing? Just give a phone call. You never know where that's going to lead. And it might give you something inspiring to think about. We can also do other things, such as maybe have some tea, some coffee to kind of change our mindset a little bit and change our energy. Having a drink even, although I wouldn't recommend too many, it can be enough to just kind of mix things up a little bit, change our frame of thinking, and get us into another type of mindset. But because whether it's coffee, tea, or a beer or whatever, you're doing those sorts of activities kind of, it's something like people tend to like devote their attention to. They stop, they have their coffee, they sit down, they enjoy it. And I think that breaks the routine as well. So these are things you can do. I think reading is a great idea. Read things that you find inspiring. Lots of people are writing about how to find inspiration and how to be motivated and be creative. These can be really powerful things to read. Even some nonfiction, watching a movie, reading a book, anything can be enough to sort of, again, break you out of those problems that you're facing in your life, those responsibilities, and maybe give you a different way to look at them. And that might translate into some sort of music that is inspired by those issues going on in your life. How many times have musicians dealt with their emotions and feelings and hard times through good songs? It's really satisfying, and it's a great way to sort of make your lemonade out of your lemons, is to use those events in your life as the inspiration or the subject even of your music. It's a healthy way to deal with things. Certainly beats bottling it up or punching walls or something silly like that. Inspiration is not something that you should wait to come to you. Hunt it. Go find it. Actively pursue it. And maybe even don't even worry about it too much. I think we can all make great music by just putting in the hard work. And a lot of times, and I'm sure you can relate to this, that when you do something that you really enjoy, when you make something and you create something that you're proud of, that in itself is inspirational. It's inspiring, and it can make you want to go back and do it again and keep working on it or move on to something new. But don't wait around for it. It's very rare to get struck by lightning. It's very rare for inspiration to strike you, and it's even more rare that inspiration strikes you during a time you can actually do something about it. So we have to find it ourselves. We have to get to work. We have to make it happen. Thanks a lot for listening to the Music Production Podcast. I hope this has been inspiring for you. It's something I get a lot of questions about, how to get inspired. And it's something I deal with myself too. I don't have this all figured out. And as I said about my video course on creating excitement, a lot of what I'm doing the podcast for is to tap into and explore these problems for myself. And I think that's a really good way to be inspired. In fact, right now I'm kind of excited to go make some music after this, just because I know that what I've said is true for me. And if I just go through the steps of just sitting down, getting to work and finding it instead of waiting for it, I know I can do something fun and interesting and cool. And if nothing else, I can at least enjoy the time I'm doing it, because I know I'm working on the skills, I'm working on the techniques, and I'm cultivating the types of things that I need to cultivate for the next time I really am inspired and do have the time to drink that water out of my hands before it slips through my fingers. So go on, make good music, and please let me know how you're liking these episodes. I've been having a blast having some conversations with some really cool people lately. If you haven't heard those, please go back and listen to them. I think there's a lot of amazing knowledge that people are dropping that's really opening my eyes quite a bit. And I thank them all for spending the time with me. And please reach out, leave comments on the post, or tell your friends, share this, leave reviews wherever you get your podcasts. All that stuff helps quite a bit. And I really do appreciate it. And I do thank anyone who has reached out to me about the show. It has been inspiring in itself to have people explain how it has helped them. And that's why I'm doing this. So thanks again for listening. Again, I'm Brian Funk. I make music as AfroDJMac. Check out my website, AfroDJMac.com. And go ahead and make good music. Find your inspiration yourself. Don't wait for it to come to you. Take care.